afternoon, evening. I know people are still busy out in the field, still harvesting and other things, but we were hoping this time would work for everyone's schedules. So this is the second virtual soil health field day for us. We had one last month on cover crop soil health and roots. And we do have the recordings to those if anyone is interested in that topic and was unable to attend that session. So first, I'm just going to introduce myself and then go over some housekeeping rules and general plan for the next hour or so. My name is Debbie Aller. I'm the Ag Stewardship Specialist with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County. I work closely with our Suffolk County Soil and Water District, in particular Caitlin and Anne-Marie and others within that office, and Caitlin will be speaking tonight. We work very closely on our soil health programs, specifically the soil health testing program and the equipment loan program, which is the topic of tonight's discussion that Caitlin's going to be speaking about. So just to start, everyone who has entered the meeting, everyone is muted currently with their video turned off. And it will remain this way until the end of the webinar, when we will open up the floor for questions and answers. So we're going to ask that everyone holds their questions until the end of Caitlin's presentation. And then, but you can ask questions anytime within the chat box, which is at the very bottom of the screen, right next to the participants window. So you can enter questions throughout the course of Caitlin's presentation, but we will wait to answer them until the end of her talk. This webinar is being recorded, so we are able to share it with other growers after this event. So just be aware of that. So right now I'm going to turn the floor over to Caitlin Shahinian, who is the Soil District Technician with Soil and Water, and we work very closely together on these programs. So Caitlin's going to introduce herself a little bit further, and go ahead.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin, as Debbie just said. I'm a Soil District Technician for Suffolk County Soil and Water Conservation District. And as you could probably tell, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about our soil health programs today, as well as why soil health is important. But first, I wanted to just give a brief background about myself. I've been working with the district for about 2 years now, and working with this district has given me a lot of great experiences learning about our rich agricultural community and the relationship between our growers and local environment. I have been facilitating both of the soil health programs with CCE AgStu since I've started 2 years ago. And I'm always learning about soil health and the relationship of soil health with our Suffolk County growers. So I won't go into it too much because I'm sure most of you know. Soil is composed of minerals, organic matter, living organisms, gases, and liquids. And along with this, soil texture can also be classified by the amount of sand, silt, and or clay present in the soils. On Long Island specifically, we do sometimes see pockets of silty, clay, or loamy soils, but we do typically see more sandier, well-drained soils, unlike other areas of the state which may have higher percentages of silt and clay and loam. So having these sandier soils present here on Long Island makes it even more important for us to make sure that our soil is healthy and that we're protecting our natural resources. So NRCS defines soil health as the continued capacity of a soil function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. So soil is home to so many different types of species of micro and macro organisms that include bacteria, fungi, protozoa, algae, nematodes, mites, insects, etc. And the presence and absence of these organisms can impact plant and soil health. I won't go too much into this more than this because that can be entire presentation on its own. But all of this ties into the NRCS 4 principles for soil health properties, which I like looking at the 4 principles. It helps me keep track of the importance of soil health and how you can do that. So these 4 steps are minimizing disturbances, maximizing soil cover, maximizing biodiversity, and maximizing continuous living roots. And I'll just give an example of what those actually mean. So an example of minimizing disturbance can often include having minimal or no tillage systems. Constantly plowing or tilling a field can have negative effects on the soil microbiome. And while some may think that breaking up the compaction is helping with the compaction, it is often a short-term effect that can impact the quality of your soil long-term. To give an example of maximizing soil cover, that often can include having a cover crop or a cash crop that is covering the soil, so you're not having bare ground as often. You're trying to put down some sort of cover to make sure that you just don't have soil present. Covering the ground reduces soil erosion from wind and water, and it reduces stormwater runoff as well. An example of maximizing biodiversity can include incorporating more plant species in your cover crop mixes, or doing crop rotations more often, or even having a buffer zone for pollinator habitats that can help introduce more beneficial insects and birds into your fields. An example of maximizing continuous living roots can also tie into incorporating cover crops and or having more established crops or more established fields, meaning that you're not tilling your fields as often and you're having longer resting periods so that your fields can recover from whatever operations that you're doing on that field. So focusing on the 4 principles and prioritizing soil health can help improve your organic matter. It can help improve your soil aggregate stability, reduce soil compaction, eliminate erosion from wind and water, increase water infiltration, increase water availability, water capacity in your soil. It can improve nutrient cycling, so your soil can hold nutrients or fertilizers longer. It can improve filter and buffering of pollutants and balance and diversifying soil biology. So as I've mentioned earlier, Long Island in general has relatively sandier soils, as well as some vital aquifers that we utilize for irrigation, drinking, recreational use, etc. So ground and surface water quality and soil erosion and sedimentation are just a few problems that we see on Long Island. The long-term effects of performing soil health practices can really make a difference. So during drier conditions or a drought period, soil loss through wind erosion may be visible and can cause some concerns by producing either low visibility or poor air quality in the community. And this article is just one of the more recent ones that kind of discusses these issues of soil erosion by wind and how that might be affecting the public. And to give a more visual example, here's a photo taken of soil loss from a grower plowing his field. You could see that the soil is being kicked up into the air. That soil is being lost and is not contributing to that field anymore. And this is just obviously done on a small scale, but you could see or kind of imagine how if this is done on a larger scale, larger operations or more farmers, like if this is happening to more farmers, you could see how it can affect farmers and the community itself. So improving soil health can have long-term effects, meaning you're minimizing tillage, so you're not spending as much time or fuel or money tilling a field. You're increasing your crop yield and quality because you're increasing your soil health. You're going to see that more in the crops that you're producing. You're reducing the need and the amount of fertilizer that you're using, so you're saving money and time that way as well. You're also reducing the need for herbicides, and you're reducing the need for irrigation because the soil is going to be able to hold more water. You won't need to water as much. And it also helps reduce stormwater runoff, soil erosion, sedimentation from storms and other weather events. So having healthier soils contributes to so many different factors that can impact not only soil quality, but all these other things as well. So the district has partnered with CCE Ag Stewardship Program to create and facilitate both the soil health testing program and the soil help program as part of a soil health initiative to assist Suffolk County growers to implement soil health conservation practices that focus on improving soil health long-term by encouraging soil health BMPs for grower operations. So as farmland becomes more expensive and more scarce, especially here in Long Island, it's important that we're improving soil health and the productivity. And the ultimate goal of these programs is to help growers monitor and repair soil health for the purpose of increasing soil vitality to yield higher quality products. So the first step to managing and improving soil health is to quantify existing conditions and then track those changes over time. The goal of this program is to provide this service to growers interested in monitoring and managing their soil health in their farm. The testing program goes beyond a basic nutrient testing of a standard soil health test by using the Cornell University Assessment of Soil Health, or CASH test. The CASH test evaluates the soil's biological and physical attributes as well as the basic nutrient testing. So the soil properties that are tested reflect resiliency to drought, excessive rain, erosion, retention and leaching of agrochemicals, tilth, and nutrient cycling. So the standard test analyzes soil pH, organic matter, micro and macro nutrients, wet aggregate stability, active carbon, surface and subsurface hardness, texture, and soil respiration. So when a grower is interested in getting a soil health test done, we add them to the participant list that we have, and we collaborate with them, learn a little bit more about who they are, their operation, their goals, and we figure out the soil types that they have present on their fields using either ArcGIS or Web Soil Survey, and that kind of helps us, before we even get to the farm, what their fields look like. Then we'll head out to the farm to meet with the grower and to officially determine what fields we're going to sample. We try to sample fields before that they're tilled or planted, and try to aim for a few days after a rain event. The beginning to end of March is usually when we go, and it's the most ideal. Sometimes we go out in the fall as well. At this point, we will walk the entire length of the field or fields in a zigzag formation, collecting multiple subsamples of soils and testing compaction along the way. So this slide here shows me and Debbie doing just that. I'm on the left and I'm using a tool called a soil penetrometer, which helps me determine soil compaction based on how much pressure I'm putting on the instrument. The scale is between 0 and 400 psi, and the harder I push down, the higher that reading will be. And the idea of it is that anything over 300 means that the likelihood of plant roots being able to penetrate through the soil is pretty low or non-existent, meaning that the soil may be highly compacted. So we measure the compaction within the first 0 to 6 inches and then 6 to 18. It's hard to tell in the photo, but the probe has notches every 3 inches, so you could kind of gauge it that way, and we could tell how far down the probe can go with those little notches. We then take down these measurements for the testings, and those get sent along with the soil samples that Deb is doing in the picture on the right. So when collecting soil, we make sure to clear the ground of any vegetation. Like if there's a field that has cover crop or turf grass or something, you want to make sure you kind of get through a little bit of that first so you're not scooping too much of that up. We then make a deep cut into the ground and make sure that we get a thick slice of soil on the shovel, at least 6 inches long and a couple of inches thick. Like I said, any vegetation in the slice is removed. If there's roots or any worms or anything, we try to take those out as well. And once we collect these slices, we put them in the bucket, mix it up. And depending on the size of the field, we can collect between 1 and roughly 6 subsamples. Once we go across the whole length of the field, we make sure to mix up the soil in the bucket pretty well, and then put roughly 4 cups of soil into a Ziploc bag, which we then send to the Cornell Cache Lab up in Ithaca. This process is repeated for every field that we sample, and sometimes we have to break up a field into several samples depending on how large the field is. So there are several different options for tests and add-ons. The standard soil health test is free through us, and this service is currently available to Suffolk County growers. If growers wish to have an advanced test or an add-on test done, such as soluble salts, available water capacity, ACE protein, water-soluble boron, those types of tests would be at the grower's expense. And we are currently limiting samples to 3 samples per grower, just to level the playing field. If we have multiple people interested in the program, we want to make sure we could help out as many growers as we can with the funds that we have available. Once these samples are sent to the lab, test results are ready within 8 to 10 weeks. And then we arrange to sit down or do a Zoom call with growers to discuss their results. To monitor soil health, it's important that we do these tests every 3 years to kind of see how your property may have done better, worse, how we can kind of help gauge your soil health for your specific fields on a 3-year basis, basically. So here's a snapshot of what the first page of the Cache Lab test result may look like. Anything in the green means that your sample is good or did well. Yellow or orange are different ranges of needing improvement, but okay. And then red is where we can really focus on helping improve soil health in those areas. And if you're interested in participating in this program, you could reach out to either Debbie or I. Our contact information is going to be at the end of the presentation. Just reach out to us and we could add you to the participant list for either next year or the year after. But yeah. So now I'll get into the main topic of today's talk, which is the equipment loan program. So the idea to create our own farm equipment loan program kind of started when this district learned that there were several other soil and water conservation districts throughout the state that had their own version of an equipment loan program. And our district used to own a plastic baler. So our staff is pretty familiar with this type of program and this type of process of using equipment or renting out equipment. And this particular program started towards the end of 2018, right around when I started, in conjunction with the testing program. And as you can probably guess, this program is an equipment loan program that is specifically aimed to promote conservation tillage practices for growers with the goal to improve overall soil health. This program allows growers to utilize equipment they may not normally have available to them. Farm equipment can often be expensive, so by providing this service, it gives growers the opportunity to use newer conservation-based equipment that they may not normally get a chance to use or be around by or purchase for themselves. This program is currently free of charge as long as the equipment is properly being taken care of, it's sufficiently cleaned, there's no significant damage besides normal wear and tear done to the equipment. Soil and Water and CCE Ag2 worked together to determine what pieces of equipment would benefit Long Island producers the most. I believe we sent out like a little flyer to get some feedback from growers on what they would want for this type of program, and that's where we based our findings off of. So the equipment was finally purchased towards the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And last year was our pilot year. By midsummer, we were able to start loaning out the equipment to growers. We had about 5 growers at first who continuously used the program last season, despite the delayed start. And this past year, despite the pandemic and having those types of setbacks, we were able to loan out the equipment to 12 growers without too much of a delay. We just had to finagle around some new challenges with the pandemic, but it worked out pretty well. And we were even able to purchase a new piece of equipment towards the end of June that I'll talk a little bit more about in the next couple of slides. So we currently have 7 pieces of equipment. They are New Holland 145 spreader, Millcreek 406 Row Mulcher, 2 ABI Manual Spreaders. We have 2 Zonebuilders. One is a 2 shank with a strip builder attachment. The other is a 4 shank with the same attachments. And we also have a no-till drill that has 3 seed boxes. So now I'm going to take some time to talk about each piece of equipment, what they're used for, show pictures and videos of the equipment in action. So we have, like I said, 3 different versions of spreaders to accommodate different operations and grower needs. So spreaders are a great conservation tool for moisture control, weed suppression, soil temperature moderation, and for adding organic material to the soil. Spreaders can be used throughout the year. I've had growers using it during the winter months as a fertilizer and kind of like a ground cover. And I'll be showing a slide of each piece with specs of the equipment just to give you an idea of the size and capacity of the equipment. I won't go over everything shown in those charts, but it's there for you if you want to browse while I'm talking about the equipment. So first, I'll just go over the New Holland spreader that we have. It has a heap capacity of about 182 cubic feet of material and requires a PTO horsepower of 40. This can easily be trailered with a pickup truck and has highway graded tires. We transport this with our pickup truck no problem. It doesn't have tailgate lights. I don't know, in this picture on the bottom, it shows that it has one of those signs. I don't know where that sign went, but we did buy tailgate lights from Harbor Freight, like the magnetic ones that you could plug into the back of a pickup truck with a 4-way light connection. And that works great when we need to transport it. So this type of spreader is designed to produce an even spread pattern off of the back of the spreader. It can be used for manure, mulch, compost. The apron chains are hydraulically driven, which brings the materials on the conveyor belt towards the back of the spreader to be discharged. And the beaters can help break up and distribute the material evenly, so it's not getting all clumped up. And these photos are of a grower who used the spreader earlier this year, back in February. He used it to fertilize his fields with, I believe it was duck manure. So this is the Millcreek 406 Row Mulcher. This is the one that we recently purchased. We purchased it from Lyrac, the Cornell facility up on Sound Avenue. This is actually a 1999 Row Mulcher, but it was barely used. I think it's in great condition. And this is a side discharge bulk material spreader. So it's excellent for rows or operations such as vineyards, orchards, berries, and nurseries. It's about 5 feet wide, so it can go through some of those narrower rows. It has a heaped capacity of 5.4 cubic yards, and it requires a tractor horsepower of at least 30. It also has PTO hydraulic drive. And this one can also be easily transported with a pickup truck. We have an F-250 that we use, and we have a simple hitch ball hitch without the ball. It does not have highway grade tires, so you do have to drive pretty slow on the road with this. I believe there's a sign on the back of it, but we usually use those magnetic lights on this as well. And this type of machine or equipment is designed for side discharge of bulk material. You can either directly side discharge or remotely side discharge, meaning you can control how far or how close you want to shoot the material out, which is why it's great for orchards and vineyards and everything like that. You can control how far out by these discharge control panels that you could see in both of these photos. And it can shoot up to, I believe, 8 to 10 feet. It can go out pretty far. Specific use for a variety of different mulch, compost, wood chips, topsoil mixes, sawdust, organic material, organic matter, really anything. Right now, this spreader is being used to place wood mulch in between orchard rows for weed suppression. So now I'm going to just kind of exit out of this real quick to show you some videos of, I'll show you a video of the Row Mulcher. I'll hop back into the presentation, talk a little bit more, and I'll have to go through this with a couple of the other pieces of equipment. So right now is just a quick demo video of the Row Mulcher and how it's going to discharge the material.
Caitlin, sorry, you're gonna have to share the different screen. We can't see the video. You have to share the video screen.
Ah, okay, hold on. Hold on. I minimized my Zoom screen and now I don't know how to make it bigger again. Oh, gosh. Share. All right, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Let me close this again. Sorry about that. This is very new to me. Okay, so you can see my PowerPoint slides again?
Yep, all good.
Okay, great. So now I'll go into the ABI Manual Spreaders that we have. We have 2 of these. They're pretty good to fit in or in between rows because of their small size. They're only about 4.5 feet wide and have a heap capacity of 50 cubic feet. So it's really good for small scale projects or fields. Again, can discharge manure, mulch, compost. Unlike the much larger spreaders that we have, these ones are ground driven, so there's no hydraulics involved with these. And the conveyor belt and beaters are lever engaged. So pull the lever, and once the wheels start turning is when the belt and the beaters will start going. So now I'm going to be talking more about some of the more complex pieces of equipment that we have. I'll start off with the Zonebuilders. Like I said earlier, we have 2 of these. We have a 2-shank and a 4-shank Zonebuilder. Zonebuilders in general are meant to get through hard pan and break up soil compaction for crops and to minimize soil disturbances. Instead of tilling a whole field, a Zonebuilder just breaks up compaction in specific rows, allowing for plant roots to reach greater depths in the soil without tearing up the established cover crop you might have. So I'll talk a little bit about the specs of the 2-shank, then I'll talk about the 4-shank, and then I'll talk more about how these machines work. So 2-shank probably would be great for smaller rows, smaller fields, or projects. Required horsepower is between 60 to 100, but because we have 2 attachments on these shanks, I would recommend probably a horsepower of higher magnitude, so probably closer to 100, because it requires between 30 and 50 per shank, depending on the attachments. That also increases the weight, and transport width for this particular machine is 8 feet. It is pretty wide. So this machine and the 4-shank Zonebuilder are the 2 pieces of equipment that we can't transport with our pickup truck. Usually we have to rely on the growers to bring their tractor, because the Zonebuilders do have a 3-point hitch for most tractors. Or we've had we do have some companies that we work with to transport the equipment if needed. Usually that might be at the expense of the grower, though, if they need it to be transported to them. So that's an option. So as you can see in this picture, we have strip builder attachments on the Zonebuilders. You can see in the photo on the right, it's the back 2 pieces. So from left to right, you have the front coulters of the Zonebuilder, then you have the shank, and then after that is the attachments. So it's the disc for that and the rowing harrow. These parts are additional attachments that we had to purchase for the Zonebuilders to help create beds and level the ground. And I'll talk more about these in a second. But these types of machines are great to use for crops like pumpkins and things like that. So now I'll talk a little bit about the 4-shank and then get more into it. So same as the 2-shank, it's just larger, and the 4-shank obviously can be used for larger rows, larger fields. It can be used as a 2-shank. The shanks do come off, and currently the grower who is using it, he did take off the 2 shanks and has been using it as a 2-shank Zonebuilder. Required horsepower for this one is obviously more because it's bigger. I would recommend closer to 200 because it is about 30 to 50 per shank, and then the attachments on top of that. Approximate weight, same thing, goes up. The transporting width for this one is a little bit more difficult to work with. It's 11 feet. Like I said, if you have a big tractor, you could pull it, no problem. Or we have companies to recommend to transport the equipment to you if needed. So how these machines work, they have heavy duty shank pole arms, cast points, and weight bars that dig down and break up soil in specific rows. So the wheels and the front coulters are positioned in front of the shanks for with a 1,500 pounds of down pressure to cut through residue, and then the shanks are able to dig down through the residue and go into the soil and break up the soil. So the photo on the left is a great depiction of that, seeing how far down into the ground those shanks can go. The stabilizing wheels on the sides can be mounted either on the inside or the outside of the frame, and they can be used as a guide to help gauge the depth of the shanks into the ground. And those can be adjusted without the need of any heavy duty tools. As I've mentioned before, there are several accessory attachments for the Zonebuilders. We specifically purchased the strip builder attachments. Without any attachments, the Zonebuilders are just subsoilers that have deep shanks that strip plow the rows and don't create these zones. So both Zonebuilders currently have the strip builder attachments on each shank with harrow baskets, which help build these zones by creating areas of raised mulch soil for faster warm-up and earlier planting. The basket can help with the soil after the strip builder discs kind of go through the soil. Growers don't typically use or shouldn't use these types of machines too late in the fall or winter. Since these machines break up soil compaction, they shouldn't really be used when the ground is frozen or cold and closer to frozen. It would be better to use these machines during the spring, summer, and fall when you have soil moisture and the soil is not as hard. So just to give another example, I have a grower who's using the Zonebuilder, or he did use it up until this point, and he used it to establish crop rows in fields that were already established in a cover crop. So these are photos far away and close up of the cauliflower that he planted once he zone build to create these rows. So another video. Can you see my video, Debbie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Another one. This video might get a little choppy. Okay, you get the idea. Okay. So now I'll talk more about the no-till drill that we have. The no-till drill is probably the most utilized piece of equipment that we currently own. It's been basically passed off and used by growers pretty much every week this year, starting mid-March to now. Truax drills in general are designed to plant grasses or legumes on a variety of different site conditions. The no-till drill works great to cut through residue and ground cover to drill seeds directly into rows. So it has double disc ferrule openers with depth bands that optimize seed placement and soil to seed contact. It also has multiple seed boxes, which gives you the flexibility to seed native fluffy seeds, cool season species, small grains, legumes, and wildflowers. Plantings can be accomplished as a no-till and interseeding in most conditions and can be used to prepare seed beds and conventional seed beds. The required horsepower is a minimum of 40. And like I said, we have 3 seed boxes on this drill. There's a small seed or a legume box, a fluffy seed or a warm season box, a cool season or grass seed box, and this drill has taillights and high weight graded tires, and it can be transported with our pickup truck and a hitch with a 4-way light connection. So the no-till drill is great for seeding cover crop and pasture mixes and to establish fields without the need to disc the field first. The 3 different seed boxes make the drill versatile, and the drill can be calibrated to the appropriate seed drop rate just by following steps in the manual. The picture on the right is a planting of pasture mix from last summer. I believe this was taken a couple of weeks after they planted and used the no-till drill. And just a couple of things that I wanted to mention that kind of popped up for us that I think are important to mention. While learning about this drill, we've worked with Dan Heston from Peconic Land Trust a couple of times. They've had a no-till drill for years, and Dan really knows how this machine works. So if I ever have questions or I'm not sure of something, I usually ask him about the drill, and he was the one who really went through how the machine works and how to calibrate it with us first. And while he was first showing us how his drill works, he pointed out that you can't really use this drill on recently tilled field. Besides the fact that it seems kind of counterintuitive to use a no-till drill on a tilled field, the loose and uneven ground can make it difficult for the machine to work properly, and the coulters get buried in the tilled soil, and then you're not getting the seed drop right, and it just kind of messes everything up. So that's one thing that I thought was important to just mention. The second thing is, especially with like this past summer, for example, I know a few growers that had difficulty using the drill because of drier, drought-like conditions. If the soil isn't moist enough, the coulters can't fully cut through the soil properly, can't cut through that residue, and can't get deep enough into the ground for the seeds to really have the right type of soil contact for seed germination. So for the drill, as well as the Zonebuilders, it would be best to use these pieces of equipment a day or so after a sufficient rain event, making sure that your soils have been drained enough so that you're not causing compaction, but making sure that your soil has a good amount of moisture in it prior to using the equipment can make it easier for the machine to work well for you. Too soon after a rain event, and you might, like I said, get some more compaction issues, but the timing of it is what's important. And just to briefly mention it, because I feel like it's easier to hear it from a person than to read it off of a manual, I wanted to just briefly mention how to do the seed calibration. I guess it's kind of similar to a grain drill, if you are familiar with that. So you use a bottle jack to raise the driving wheel that has the disengagement pin. You make sure that the pin is engaged so that the seed can drop and that the lever is open. You just connect the end of 1 or 2 hoses and place it in a bucket. You then put the seed into the drill box just enough to cover the hoses, and you slowly spin the wheel 13 1/4 times to make sure that the seed is dropping while you're spinning it. Once you've done that, weigh the seed in the bucket in grams, divide the weight by 2, and that gives you a seed rate in bulk pounds per acre. So you could do this a couple of times to determine the average output per box that you need for the specific mix that you're using. From there, you can troubleshoot by adjusting the shift lever to open or close the flutes to control the specific seed rating. And there are seed charts in for each box in the manual if you wanted to look at that as well. Again, with this machine, it's ideal to use it during the spring, summer, or even early fall. It shouldn't be used in the late fall, or even if you're getting too close to winter. That's not ideal, because you want to give your seeds enough time to become established before the cold really sets in and it stunts them from growing further. So now I'll quickly show you 2 videos of the drill from 2 different angles being used. just gonna, I'll pause it here because we've been. Okay. So now I'll get into program requirements if you're interested in renting some equipment. So equipment should be reserved either via phone call or email. You could call me, you could call Debbie, whoever you have contact with. Just make sure that you can get in contact with me. I have the list. And this is to ensure efficiency and to limit confusion about either availability of equipment or who wants what when. I kind of reserve this on a first come first serve basis, and I try to work with growers the best I can to make sure that everybody can utilize equipment whenever they want to. Loaners can only borrow one piece of equipment at a time. If multiple people want the same thing, that's how I try to gauge it out. You can reserve multiple pieces at different times, but I might not let you use more than one piece of equipment at a time based on if there are other people interested in the piece of equipment. We also request that loaners fill out and sign a contract form and an injury waiver form. We also need proof of insurance, usually a valid certificate of insurance to the district, which includes a general liability of $1 million, which must include Suffolk County and Soil and Water Conservation District as name insured during the duration of the loan. You could easily call up and probably have it by the end of the day type of thing. We also ask for an incidental deposit of $500. We don't cash this check. We usually refund it if the equipment is properly used and returned without being damaged, and making sure that the equipment is significantly cleaned. If any problems arise, we might need to use the deposit or work something out. But usually you give me the deposit. If you clean it and it's okay to return, I give the deposit back to you either right after you drop off the equipment or at the end of the season, whatever is easier. Loaners must also have adequate transportation for the equipment to and from their property. We don't loan out any tractors or trailers or anything like that. We currently don't have a storage location for the equipment, so we have been basically transporting equipment to and from farms. But during COVID was where things kind of changed, and I really had to rely on the growers to transport the equipment between themselves. So it's always important, just in case I am not able to, for some reason, like if COVID happens again, if I'm unable to be there, it's important to make sure that you have the capabilities of moving the equipment if needed. The other thing is equipment will be picked up and dropped off usually during the week, Monday through Friday, during regular work hours. And I usually am there present and make sure everything goes well. So those are the requirements. For recommendations, these are obviously required, but it would be great if we had these things as well. So this is kind of where the soil health program and the testing program come into play, come work together. It would be great to have a cash test conducted on your fields prior to borrowing the equipment. This can help benefit the grower for us to monitor how soil health has improved throughout the years if they implement this equipment multiple times a year, multiple years. We can really gauge it to see how this equipment might be helping their operation and their soil health quality as a whole. The second thing is if you're unfamiliar with any pieces of equipment, it would be great to check out the equipment prior to picking it up or using it. I have manuals. I scan PDF copies of them. I can email them to you if you want to check them out beforehand, or if you want to go check out the equipment at whatever farm it's at. I could arrange something so that you can see those and check it out before you use it, just to make sure that you understand how the machine works, and you're not wasting time while you have it to kind of troubleshoot it, and to make sure that you have the right type of attachments or hitching attachments needed for the equipment. And the third thing is providing feedback for us on how your overall experience was with the program, any challenges you had, what you liked, what you didn't like, how you'd like the program to grow, what piece of equipment you'd like us to purchase next. Because this is a new program, we really want feedback so that we can make sure that this program continues to serve the community properly and really help out growers. So that's the end of my little spiel. Now I'm gonna turn it over to Ryan from Jamesport Farmstead. Ryan is a grower with us in Jamesport, New York. He has an organic no-till vegetable and fruit farm here, and he's used the no-till drill to seed a couple of things this past season, and he's really utilized this program a lot, and he wanted to give some feedback on his experiences with the program this year. So Ryan, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Caitlin. I hope everyone can hear me. As Caitlin said, I'm Ryan, and we used the drill. I guess reserved it 2 separate times, but we used it, I guess, for 3 different applications. The 2 big annual applications were for cover cropping fallow fields that we're going to put into fruit production over the next 2 or 3 years. And this spring we drilled peas and oats using the no-till drill. And while we had it for that first week installment in the spring, we also drilled between beds of blueberries and various fruit trees, perennial ryegrass, and white Dutch clover, which came in very nicely, even though it was pretty dry this year. And I think after I got over the hurdle of calibration, which was really important, and somebody from Peconic Land Trust did come and show me how to do that. That was great. I got a feel for it. The paperwork to actually use the equipment was very straightforward and simple enough. And let's see, I absolutely plan on using the Row Mulcher, which I hadn't seen in action until just now when those videos came up. And I think that'll be really helpful until this theoretical use of the Row Mulcher. We were literally loading 3 wheelbarrows at a time with our loader on the tractor and wheeling them into the field. I think that could save us a lot of time. So that's great. And then, okay, I kind of skipped a beat, but going back to the second installment of using the no-till drill was just, I would say 5 weeks ago-ish, and we drilled sorghum sedan grass. I think we're also partaking in the soil help cache testing program, and I look forward to getting our results and working with everyone to learn more about our soil structure and how we can build it. I won't proselytize too much here, but I really believe that no-till is a wonderful, not disturbing the soil is kind of my attempt to growing healthy soil. I could go on and on about that, but I'll resist at the moment. The equipment that this program provides, I would otherwise never have access to it. So I think it's wonderful to use any tens of $1,000 piece of equipment, once a year. You can't really justify those expenses. So if a bunch of farmers can respect the tool and use it properly, I think that'll I hope that'll keep this program moving forward. I anticipate using the no-till drill for the foreseeable seasons to come. I hope I'll be able to squeeze in and use it season after season, just drilling perennial stuff between our fruit trees and bushes and whatnot. Let's see here. I have a couple notes. I have never used a Zonebuilder before, but Caitlin reminded me that I did at a farmer training program where I used to work, saw a Zonebuilder being used, and I think it's wonderful. I think if we were a bigger scale operation, we only farm vegetables on like 1.2 or 3 acres, so it's pretty small, but I would absolutely be using that Zonebuilder to prep, I guess, like mini beds through established residues. I think that it when I saw the Zonebuilder that I got to see, it was wonderful. I thought it would be an excellent way to establish vegetables. And anyway, I think that's all I have now. I'm sure I could babble forever, but I will definitely be using not only the no-till drill, but at least the Row Mulcher, and who knows, I'm sure I can figure out ways to use some of the other equipment. So thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks, Ryan.
Sure.
So here's our contact information. If you need to reach out to either Debbie Aller or myself, you could reach out to us via email or phone number. And that concludes the end of my presentation. So I guess.
Great. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for the very informative presentation. I thought it was really, really good. And thanks, Ryan, for your testimonial about the program and use of the equipment. I think it's really great to get grower feedback. I think that's very important, and that, as Caitlin had said, allows us to make the program better and to offer, resources and services to the growers, with what they actually need to, be more sustainable and be more profitable. So thank you again. I just want to open up the floor to everyone. Anyone have questions? You're more than welcome to input your questions in the chat box at the bottom of the screen. If there's any questions about the soil health testing program, the equipment program, or soil health in general, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. And if nobody wants to ask a question here, which is totally fine, it's getting to be the end of the day, feel free to contact Caitlin or myself via email, or give either of us a call if you have any questions. Okay, one question just came in. It's for Ryan. How do you feel about the germination with the oats and peas using the no-till drill?
I had great success. I think it was some good fortune that I drilled the seed. It was about 4 or 5 acres of peas and oats, and we just happened to have like 2 good rain events in the week to follow, and it was a good stand. Calibrating, I actually just put the peas and oats in the same box, which may not be advisable. I'm not sure if that's the clinical way to use it, but not that it would damage the machine, but that the rate would be, the rates of the 2 seeds dropping would be not ideal. But anyway, it worked out really well.
Great, thank you, Ryan, for that. Anyone else have any questions or comments or feedback on this? All right. Yes, great presentation, Caitlin. Thanks again, Ryan. I think that was very informative, and I hope it helps our growers and they know, this is a resource available to them, and that they will utilize it. So our next soil health field day event will be October 21st. which is a Wednesday, and that is going to be from 4:30 to 6 p.m. And that field day is going to talk about compost and other soil amendments. We will be sending out a flyer and information about that event probably next week as we finalize that. So thank you again for everyone attending, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.